The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Well, good evening and welcome to The Gloves Are Off. Once again, Moses Woldu is off, so I am filling in for him. And of course, we have our lovely guest. Usually I introduce you with an insult, but I said today, Andrew, you're clear free. I will not insult you and your wonderful jersey. Which
looks pretty. I look good in red. Although
Andrew
I'm probably going to match the back.
I don't know if you guys can see him or not, but yes, Andrew Brethauer repping the Red Dogs, and they have a phenomenal season. So I'm really hoping this does not jinx the team.
Yeah.
And if it does, Rod Kirby's coming after you.
Yeah, then,
Just throwing that out there.
Just move on from that.
All right, and to our guest, Morgan Messenger, and we mentioned the Twitter handle because, you know, we talked about that, a dirty mess. And Morgan, I think this is your first time on the show, isn't it?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah, and so you are with the Bobcats. You actually finished second in team scoring right behind Kevin Dara, but so far, how has it been just kind of antsy waiting to get to the RBC Cup?
Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks off so far, so we're looking forward to getting back on the ice and getting ready for RBC.
Right, and of course, you're talking about the national spotlight for that, and that's a wrap because the AAA Bobcats, their season now is over, and of course, they were going for a quest for a national title. Unfortunately, that was dashed in the semis, and they left without a medal. You know the AAA Bobcats, back of your hand. What did you think about their quest at the TELUS Cup? Do you think that series, or rather, should I say that tournament was theirs to be won or not really?
I don't know if it was theirs to be won because every team is so good there. It was more just they weren't, and we kind of mentioned it last week when we were talking, that they weren't playing their style of game to start it off. And it kind of just went that way the whole tournament. They were always behind, always having to play from behind. They barely held the lead through any of the round robin games. And you guys probably know, like, you got to actually, playing from behind doesn't help you if you all the time. And when you always have to be coming back in games, you know, it's not only statistically are you losing your chances at winning, but it's mentally plays on you. So
was that maybe the most stunning thing for you, the fact that they could not score first until well into that tournament, and they were always trying to, you know, they were chasing all the time. And this is a team that we're not used to seeing when we were covering them here for the regular season, the postseason.
No, it was pretty shocking to see, really. I think every game that I watched during the postseason, they were scoring first and scoring often. So it was definitely a bit of a switch up for them to have to come from behind all the time.
Okay, so now the pressure, does that kind of turn on to you guys? Because, you know, we still don't have a national title here in Lloydminster, so now you guys have that chance to do it in 3 weeks' time. Does that add more pressure onto you guys? Is that kind of an inspiration, seeing what the AAA Bobcats were able to do?
I don't know if it adds really more pressure to us. We've kind of kept ourselves focused on this all year long, and it doesn't really matter what the midgets do. Maybe for the town, and maybe the town puts a little more on us since the midgets did come short, but for us, we're just focused on going out there and getting the job done.
And does it kind of get you a little bit excited seeing how they were playing in that one, and you're pretty much, have you ever played in a national game before?
Never a national championship. I've played internationally a couple times, but never for a national title.
Okay, so there we go. So of course, when we're talking about going for a title, we're going to turn our attention to the NHL and the round one craziness almost over. We do have one more game to go, a game 7 between the Ducks and the Predators, but let's just talk about the storyline for the first round. What was the biggest storyline for you guys? Was it the fact that the Stanley Cup champions are out in the first round? Was it that the St. Louis Blues are finally getting out of the first round? The Kings not really showing up for the Sharks? Islanders, first time 23 years, they are moving on to the next round. What was the biggest storyline for you in that first round?
For me, I think the biggest storyline was the big dogs out west not getting the job done. But just kind of what the league's come to with the salary cap. All the teams they can't hold on to the guys anymore. So it brings everyone even up, and it gives teams like St. Louis and San Jose an opportunity to exercise their demons that they've had the past couple seasons.
Plus, with the way it's set up now, the divisional playoffs, and I love that. Like, you see St. Louis and Chicago killing each other every year, and we would love to see that go to best of 21. I think anybody would love to watch that style of hockey. So I don't see there's any kind of upsets because that's the way it's now set up, and it's so close, and everyone's so close together that it's, you know, we're not seeing those number 8s beating number 1 seeds anymore. So I don't know what's really nothing was really shocking. Not much, but
I do miss that 1-8 because you did have the Cinderella team that could potentially knock down the number ones. Yes, this new format works in the fact that you do get your rivals like Chicago and St. Louis, but do you think maybe then this is now potentially St. Louis's year because they're so dominant in the regular season and every time it comes to the postseason, it's unfortunate they do go up against, the best of the best. So now that both the Kings and the Hawks are done, do you feel like this is their year?
Well, they still got to go through Dallas too, and that's the other problem. Like, Dallas isn't a pushover team, and they're my pick to come out of the West. So, like, St. Louis, this is their year. If they're going to start doing it, they're running out of time. Their guys are getting older. This is going to be their year to do it.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of see where St. Louis does fall short in the playoffs is they don't really have that elite game-breaking talent, which they hadn't in the past. They have that with Tarasenko now, but whether or not Hitch decides to ever play him again, but that's a whole other story. I think in order for them guys to get by Dallas, I think they got to rely a little bit more on their skill players, and because Dallas is going to have their skill players out, and even without Seguin, Dallas is still probably the most dangerous team in the West.
Is it just time up? Do you feel that if he doesn't get out of the second round, he's done with St. Louis?
I have no doubt that if Hitch doesn't get this team out, he's going to be the one that, whether or not it's right or not, is going to get the axe, but I feel like he probably should.
Yeah. All right, and so the one big storyline besides the wins or the upsets, all that sort of stuff would be Andrew Shaw's behavior in Game 4 against, when we see right here on the screen where he just lost his mind in that game, saying homophobic slurs, swearing at the refs. You look at that sort of thing, do you feel like that one-game suspension and the fine that he got, do you feel like that was enough to really get it across that that's not acceptable?
I think so. Obviously, he crossed the line, and I think he came out and said that. He apologized right away without really needing anyone to push him out there in front of the microphone. I think he knew what he done was wrong, and I think the punishment suits that.
Yeah, and he's not repeat. It's not like this is happening over and over again. We have to keep going back over this with Shaw. One game's fine. If it fine's a fine, who cares about it? But
so you're an athlete, and you've been in these situations, and we say, oh, the emotions kind of takes over you and all that sort of stuff. Do you feel like that's a good enough excuse, or that's just not acceptable?
That's not a good enough excuse. There's some lines that you just don't cross, whether it's homophobic slurs or racial slurs or anything like that. You got to be like a good enough human that some lines you just don't cross.
How much do you think that kind of pushes back? Like we always talked about that gay athletes are afraid to come out, and then you see situations like that. Do you feel like this just kind of really pushed it back a little bit more when it comes, especially with the NHL?
I don't know if it pushes it back, but it doesn't help. And that's we want to see that. You want to see people coming out or just being themselves, and that's what they should be. But stuff like this keeps coming back into it, and now it's like, okay, well, am I going to go into a Chicago dressing room and say that I'm that type of player? No, and that's the problem. You keep pushing it out, and so I like it. They nip it quickly and especially in a playoff game too. So.
Well, exactly that. I think the best thing is education over punishment, right? You got to educate guys like Andrew Shaw. You got to believe that he didn't really truly mean, you want to believe that he didn't truly mean that. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. All right, so we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more, including the Conor McGregor mess. Stay tuned.